Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and am I having deja vu? Or am I about to talk about Carrie? Oh, it's just another remake, this one from 2013. Yes, we've made it to the final Carrie, after a TV remake and a sequel that occasionally felt like a remake. Here we have another remake, set in the 2010s, featuring more talented actors in all the main roles. The mainest role, Carrietta White, is played by Chloe Grace Moretz, and while Moretz is obviously a talented actor, it's hard for me to buy into her as Carrie White. Yeah, I know that's not a unique criticism, but it's how I really feel. She doesn't have the off-putting fragility of Sissy Spacek or the acerbic weirdness of Angela Bettis. She just seems like a normal girl acting like an outcast. You know, the stereotypical nerdy girl in rom-coms who takes off her glasses and is all of a sudden beautiful. Aside from that casting, I'm also annoyed that this iteration of Carrie doesn't try to do anything new, despite what director Kimberly Pierce of Boys Don't Cry fame says here.
There was just a chance to do it differently.
The 2002 TV movie, for all its faults, incorporated that after-the-fact framing device and a bunch of scenes from the novel that weren't in the original movie. But 2013 Carrie mostly just takes everything from the De Palma film and redoes it all with new actors and smartphones. It never experiments with the material enough to justify existing, so to me, it feels like an entirely unnecessary remake that doesn't offer any reason for me to watch it over the original. Except maybe the fact that some of its kills are a bit more graphic, so I might as well show you those, right? The movie begins at the White House. Well, this blue house, not like the White House, you know what I mean. It's a house of wet Bibles and painful pregnancies. So painful that Margaret White thinks it's cancer. But unless this is June or July, it's not a cancer at all. It's just a little baby. Damn it, Margaret, no scissors around the little baby. Especially not the face, come on. And it's probably meant to be at least a little ambiguous, but I don't think baby Carrie stopped those scissors with her mind. I think Margaret had a last-minute change of heart. And good thing she did, because now that baby can grow up to be a title card. She actually grows up to be Chloe Grace Moretz, this movie's Carrie White, who's scorned and or ignored by the popular kids in school like Chris Hargensen, Sue Snell, and Tommy Ross. The gym class volleyball game becomes a water sport this time around, but that doesn't improve Carrie's skills at all, nor, of course, her social standing.
You eat shit!
The infamous locker room scene is not as skin-tastic as De Palma's, which makes sense given that Moretz was an actual teenager here.
I am a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah, way younger in the role than Sissy Spacek, who was 24, and Angela Bettis, who was 29. Carrie White finds some red on her soap and her hands, and that freaks her out something special. But the other kids in the locker room only respond by throwing tampons at her and recording their bullying on their phones. Sounds like some interference is needed by Coach Desjardins, played here by Judy Greer, Kill Count alumnus thanks to Jurassic World and Halloween 2018. With one vintage slap to the face, she calms the situation down, just not enough to avoid an overhead light popping off. They go to the principal's office, where Desjardins tries to comfort Carrie, but the girl is still in a glass-shattering mood. Wait, was that glass? Yeah, that sounded like glass. Who has a glass water tank? That'd be so heavy. Margaret comes to pick Carrie up from school, pausing only to cast scorn upon the horny teenagers around her, namely Chris Hargensen and her boyfriend Billy Nolan, whose actor Alex Russell gives us the most threatening variation of the character. The Whites get home, and Margaret goes inside first, so Carrie can be alone in the car when that bike kid comes around.
Crazy Carrie! Crazy Carrie!
Wouldn't be Carrie without a doucher on a bike. Or off a bike, I guess. In this remake, Margaret is played by Julianne Moore, previously on the Kill Count in the Lost World Jurassic Park. Moore's Margaret is a highlight of the film, mostly because she's such a different depiction than Piper Laurie's over-the-top fundamentalist. This Margaret White has issues that lead to self-harm, but her relationship towards Carrie feels less rooted in hatred.
It's not out of being abusive, it's not out of being hateful. They love each other.
It's a different, manipulative take on the character, but one that still sees her blame Carrie's period on her having sinned.
I'm not Eve, Mama. I didn't sin.
Listen, Carrie, the only book learning we do here is Bible learning. Get it through your head. When Carrie continues to talk back, she earns a complimentary ticket to the praying closet, to which she says, "Let me out," instead of "in."
God, you suck!
Henrietta White. We do not digitally crack open doors in this house. Is that what Bleeding Bod Jesus would have wanted? I didn't think so. That night, Sue Snell is feeling real bad about how she treated Carrie. She tells her boyfriend Tommy Ross about it, and they have a conversation from the book where he tells her about a time when he too was a dick too far. Good material for the character, especially as delivered by a 19-year-old Ansel Elgort in his first ever film role. With that one scene, Sue and Tommy have established that they're good kids, unlike Chris and Billy, and Chris's best friend Tina Blake, who go on the old YouTubes and upload their video of Carrie getting bullied.
Favorite movie?
Bloodsport.
Wait, what?
Favorite drink? Bloody Mary.
What the? YouTube's not a dating app. Those aren't fields you have to fill out. At school, Miss Desjardins lines up the girls in gym class and tells them what she thinks of their recent actions.
You all did a shitty thing yesterday.
She tells them they have a choice between physical detention with her or a disinvitation to prom. But Chris Hargenson's not a fan of lateral exercises, so she tells Desjardins to fuck off. Chris is unable to rally the troops to her side, leaving her as the only one suspended, even though she doesn't understand why.
We didn't do anything wrong!
Yep, nothing wrong with this, you dummy. Carrie gets upset by her everyday bullying, so she goes into a bathroom and cracks apart a mirror with her mind. Ooh, and she making some Meershard soup in the sink? Neat. Intrigued by this capability, she researches miracles and telekinesis so that later on, in her room, she can practice her newfound talent. I guess all she needed was an extended hand and a silly face, and she was ready to be an X-Man. X-woman? Mutant. Wow, Carrie, you've already got Luke post-Dagobah skills. This was one scene where Pierce briefly experimented with practical effects, putting the books on strings and using fishing poles to make them float. She didn't like the way it looked though, so they went with visual effects instead. In class, Carrie is picked on by a teacher until Tommy comes to her defense.
Asshole.
Excuse me, Mr. Ross. Did you say something?
I said awesome.
That act of chivalry gains Carrie's attention and gets the gears turning in Sue's old snail shell. Meanwhile, Chris Hargenson has her lawyer dad meet with Principal Morton. He's played by Hart Bachner, probably based off his performance as a slimy yuppie in Die Hard. But it's worth noting that he too is a kill count graduate, having played the head prankster in Terror Train. Mr. Hargenson tries to get Coach Desjardins fired, but he's unable to do that, or get Chris her prom privileges restored, because there's hard evidence of Chris's awfulness in the form of that video on YouTube. Idiot kids. Chris complains to her friends, and when Sue stands up for Carrie, Chris questions her sincerity, saying she's only being nice so she can still go to prom. To prove Chris wrong and comfort her guilty conscience, Sue comes up with a plan and snells it out to Tommy.
What's up?
I want you to take Carrie White to prom.
Even though he'd rather go with Sue, Tommy can tell how much this would mean to her, so he cool guy walks his way down the hallway, high-fiving peers and faculty alike, until he gets to Carrie's lonely lunch table and graces her with his cool guy presence. He asks her to prom, a request she can't even understand.
What?
Prom.
And her skepticism leads her to flee. She's not looking to be the butt of another joke. She tells Desjardins about Tommy's proposal, leading to some great multifaceted face acting from Judy Greer.
Wow, Tommy Ross?
And the gym teacher encourages optimism in the girl. After all, with some makeup and posture adjustment, Carrie could make a fine date for the T-Man. Just to be sure though, Desjardins warns Tommy and Sue that they'd better not be setting up Carrie to get pranked, or there'll be Snell to pay. Gotta love Elgort as a well-meaning but kinda dense Tommy Ross.
Famous athletes like Tim Tebow, he takes kids to prom all the time, and everyone loves him for it.
Aside from the lead role, this movie's shortcomings are no fault of its stars. To make sure Sue's satisfied, Tommy goes to Carrie's house and secures her as a date by saying the poem she read in class was cool. Carrie tells her mom about her prom plans later, saying she's gonna go cause she doesn't want to be the weird kid anymore.
I have to try and be a whole person before it's too late.
Mama White don't trust Tommy's intentions though, and she tells Carrie she needs to get back in the closet. But Carrie's out and proud now, brazenly showing off her superhero powers in a way that Moretz compared to conducting a symphony. I'm not a huge fan of how it looks, but at least they didn't go with the version of this scene where Carrie moves her mom around like she's playing a fucking crane game. Billy Nolan and his bros take Chris out to a pig farm so they can collect a bunch of blood to epically prank Carrie White. His pal Jackie Talbot's unable to do the deed, so Billy takes over and starts things off with a kiss that allegedly got actor Alex Russell sick because there were pig droppings present on the sledgehammer. I couldn't verify that info, but I had to mention it anyway. Chris finishes the job with a psychopathic swine stab because Portia Doubleday's Chris Hargensen is kind of cartoonishly evil sometimes. They take that pig's blood into the school and string it up using a pulley system, all while an unsuspecting Carrie White works on her dress with no risk of sore calves. You know, even with Margaret praying in the background, I'd much rather be Carrie getting ready for the dance at home than stuck in this cliche cool kid montage backed by Vampire Weekend. Nothing against Vampire Weekend, I actually like them quite a bit, but I just can't stand manufactured coolness like this. The screenplay for this remake was co-written by two dudes. First, the original film screenwriter, Lawrence Cohen, which explains why it's so similar to the De Palma film. And secondly, Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, which explains why it feels so CW a lot of the time, seeing as Aguirre-Sacasa is the man who brought us Riverdale and the chilling adventures of Sabrina. Margaret tries to manipulate Carrie into staying home, but ain't no one about to turn down a free limo ride, so Carrietta heads downstairs to leave. When Mags tries to stop her some more, Carrie uses her powers to silence her mom and slide her on backwards into the prayer closet. And stay in there! She tells her mom she loves her, just not enough to let her leave, then steps out onto the porch to get baby driven to prom. They get to the school, and after a last-minute wardrobe adjustment, head inside the gym, where the Naked and Famous is waiting to score their entrance. Desjardins fucking loves Indietronica! Carrie has a friendly chat with the gym teacher and a romantic slow dance with Tommy, so all in all, you could call this prom a twirly-whirly success. Aw, Carrie, you're a hit, girl! If only we could roll credits now. But we can't, so we've got to watch things fall apart. At home, Margaret White bloodily claws her way out of the closet, and at school, Tina Blake lets Chris and Billy in so they can climb into the rafters and get ready to pull that rope. The voting for prom royalty begins, and Tommy convinces Carrie that they should vote for themselves.
To the devil with false modesty.
To the devil.
To Satan! The votes are tallied up while Passion Pit plays. God damn it, you made me buy this soundtrack too! And knowing the eventual results, Chris sends Sue an ominous text, which sends the Snell speeding towards the high school. She gets there just in time to hear Tommy and Carrie announce prom king and queen, and as they step up onto the stage, Sue notices the bucket hanging over their heads, like so many swords of Damocles. Sue tries to Snell out that something's going on, but she's tossed out of the gym by Desjardins, right as Billy and Chris finally get their faulty pulley system going. The bucket of blood empties out all over Carrie, covering her so nice they have to show us thrice. And no wonder they wanted to replay it a bunch in the film. They spent a ton of time testing about 50 different ways to get the perfect blood dump.
It was like 5 feet above her, 3 feet above her. It was like thick blood, it was thin blood.
A pretty striking contrast to De Palma, by the way, who just had Jack Fisk pour out a bucket of blood from a ladder. That was back when studios were a lot more hands-off, and directors could get away with just winging stuff like that. The Mean Girls then project the locker room incident onto the walls, bringing that cell phone video back, but only in a superfluous way. This is actually an example of why this movie misses the mark for me. They had an opportunity to update the story and explore the contemporary issue of cyberbullying, but it's only used as window dressing. They never do anything interesting with it. Like, they add it to the movie, but it doesn't add anything to the movie, you know? They had other opportunities to be different too. For instance, they could have explored the class divide between Carrie and her peers, which is a topic Kimberly Pierce dealt with in Boys Don't Cry, but it's only barely hinted at in this movie. I don't know, man. I just like to see things that are different, not clones of things with new technology. With the whole gym laughing at Carrie, just like Margaret warned of, Chris and Billy get the hell out of there, leaving their pulley system behind, which falls apart and sends the bucket down into Tommy's head. As we all know by now, this kills the poor boy dead, but I will say that this version is the most convincingly fatal of them all. Desjardins goes to help, only to get force-pushed away, and after Carrie realizes that Tommy's no longer among the living, it's time for her to get wild and wacky with her powers.
Are you seeing this?
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Carrie looks like an alien clown who just got stabbed in the head, and her pupils have a heartbeat? That's weird. Carrie delivers a psionic blast that knocks everyone down in an effect that combines 6 different shots of various practical and digital things being blown all around. It's a cool use of technology, but it still looks kinda cartoony to me. It does give us another kill though, when student Heather Shires is sent headfirst into a glass window. And yes, her name was Heather Shires here, not Helen Shires like the character from the book and the other 2 movies. More modern name, I guess? Carrie locks everyone inside the gym and stops an attempted escape via bleachers while crushing Jackie Talbot to death within them. She then kills nerdy prom videographer Freddie Holt by sending a table into his face. Fred Holt! Carrie revels in her powers and activates the fire sprinklers before turning her attention to Mean Girl twins Nikki and Lizzie Watson. She knocks them to the ground and they get trampled to death by their peers, dying on the floor right beside each other. Aw, that's almost nice. Carrie knocks down the lights next and triggers a fire. We see another random dude dead on the gym floor as people run around, and then Carrie goes after Tina Blake with a flaming decoration. Though she misses with her initial attack, she uses electrical cables as whips to send Chris's bestie backwards into the flames, giving us an awesome fire stunt where she looks like a flaming windmill. I love it. Carrie lifts Desjardins up by her throat, but turns out it was to save her from the wet electric floor she's making right now. Let's see, I can count 10 figures zip zap zopping around in this mess, so that's how many I'll put on the count. 8 dudes and 2 ladies, from what I can tell. Carrie doesn't risk electrocuting herself though, cause she just kinda flies right on over it. Man, but why she gotta have such a weird look on her face? Close your mouth up, Care Bear. At this point, the school is one big flaming pile of fucked, but that's not gonna stop Carrie from going after who she sees were the architects of her humiliation. Chris and Billy are planning on leaving town and never coming back, but Carrie's waiting with her weird face and a heavy foot to crack open the ground and stop their escape. Their car is nearly swallowed up into the earth, but instead they turn around and head straight towards Carrietta.
Kill her, Billy, kill her!
Shut up, I got this!
Carrie says Billy don't got this though, and her superpowers kill Billy Nolan with a slow motion head slam against the steering wheel. Sorry Chris, that boy dead. But hey, at least he won't have to pay those 2013 gas prices anymore. It doesn't take long for Carrie to dispatch of Chris as well, after she tries in vain to run the girl over once more. Carrie opens her mouth and raises that car up, then lets Chris drive it straight into the gas station for a Mortal Kombat X-ray kill. Holy shit! The accident leaves Chris's face stuck in the windshield, and she apparently dies right there. But just in case, might as well double tap her with an explosion. Right, Carrie? Cool. Sue Snell and Desjardins are 2 of the many survivors we see outside the school. In fact, there are so many, I have to assume that the only people who died are the ones I saw and counted. No triple-digit casualty lists here. Carrie walks back home and is all like, here's Carrie, only to find that her mama's no longer where she left her. Upstairs, she bathes, washing off all the pig's blood, and with tubby time complete, she finds and hugs her mom, apologizing for not listening to her about the cruelty of children. But it's too late for Margaret to reconcile with the sinful fruit of her loins, so she tricks Carrie into joining her for a prayer and then stabs her right in the back. Oh shit! The 2 of them split apart like they're opposite charges of a magnet, and even though Margaret's heaven bent on killing this supposed spawn of Satan, Carrie's able to stop the knife from crashing into her face, this time definitely using her powers. She floats her mom upward and gets all matrixy to surround her with utensils, and with one last apology, she sends them all into Margaret White's body. The overzealous mother is pinned against the prayer closet with her arms outstretched like JC, and she dies quickly and quietly with none of Piper Laurie's moans of ecstasy. Well, I mean, she does give one last gasp, but then she dies for real, so, you know, still dead. Carrie's mourning is interrupted by Sue Snell, who shows up offering her help, but Carrie's not into the idea.
Don't hurt me, Carrie. Why not? I've been hurt my whole life.
Carrie lets Sue go and expresses regret for killing her mother, which is maybe why her emotions are currently bringing a rock storm down onto and through the house. Sue tries to help one more time, but Carrie only stretches out her hand and gives a prognosis.
It's a girl.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, that's why Sue Snell threw up in the school bathroom in an earlier scene. Why is this random pregnancy edition necessary? It's not, really, but it gives Carrie a Predator 2-esque reason to save Sue as she stays with her mom's dead body and accepts her fate. A fate that involves getting crushed by raining rocks and sucked into the ground inside her house. Sue Snell feels on her belly, and sometime later testifies in front of the White Commission, a major framing device from the book. The movie ends with Sue laying a flower at the vandalized gravestone of Carrie White, while a kick-ass song from Cults plays. How many people died in our third adaptation of Carrie? Let's find out and get to the numbers. Wait, where'd that bucket... 22 people died in the 2013 Carrie, which is quite a small number for a Carrie film. The victims consisted of 13 men and 9 women, giving us this tasty prom pie, and with a runtime of 100 minutes, that left us with a kill on average every 4.55 minutes. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Chris Hargensen, whose face got trapped in a windshield before she was incinerated in a car explosion. The initial slow motion face slam was all done with CG, and I think it looks pretty good. And then that later shot used practical effects for her face sticking out of the windshield. Great. Dull machete for lamest kill. Well, we can't break tradition here, folks. It goes to Tommy Ross. You'll always have my vote, Tommy. And that's it. The Carrie remake came out in 2013, and with prom season over and summer officially here, I think it's time we thought about what we did last summer. We'll know all about it next week, but until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching this Kill Count. I want to thank some patrons like Trenton Humes, Curtis Talby, Jake Prodakis, Andrew Rodolfi, Alan Villasenor, and Jose, aka Jogar99. Alright, bring on all the hate. Dead Meat James hates the remakes. Which is not true. I like some remakes. For more of my thoughts about remakes, check out our podcast episode on the subject. Thanks everyone. Be good people.